Well, good evening to each and every one of you, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for another edition of Word Up Wednesdays. This is Bible study, and I hope and pray that wherever you are, that as you are tuning in, that you've gathered your study material, your Bible, your study guide, and you are ready to join us for a night of study. We are journeying through the book of Ruth. Tonight, we're looking at Ruth chapter 3. Verses 1 through 11. We are almost finished with the entire book of Ruth as we do this study entitled Better Together, Building Intergenerational Relationships. So I say welcome to each and every one of you once again, wherever you're watching. We are so grateful to have you in the virtual sanctuary of the St. John's Congregational Church, located 45 Hancock Street in the beautiful city of Springfield, Massachusetts. Let's go to God in prayer. God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for your grace, your mercy, your love, and your kindness. Thank you for our time together as we study your word. We pray your blessings upon us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we're getting ready to dig into Ruth chapter 3. Verses 1 through 11, but let me give a recap for those of you who are new to our study time, or you may have missed last week. On last week, we saw how everything that Ruth desired to find in a field of someone who would be generous enough to allow her to glean in it, she found it in the field of Boaz. Her kindness and willingness to do life with her mother-in-law, Naomi, though Naomi presented herself to be this bitter, broken, and battered, grieving woman, has somewhat been a benefit to Ruth. It's well talked about in Bethlehem. Everybody knows that she has come back with Naomi from Moab and how she served and loved Naomi unconditionally. And because of that, she is blessed and rewarded by it. Boaz has extended compassion and has shown a little affection towards Ruth as he discovers who she is when he asks the overseer, who is this woman gleaning in my field? He decides to invite her to an intimate meal with he and the other workers. She sits close to him, and the story begins to unfold. When Boaz extends compassion and affection to Ruth, he does 4 things, and we looked at this on last week. He begins to work behind the scenes for her. And his working behind the scenes for her involved a work of providence. It involved a work of providence because what Boaz decides to do as Ruth leaves the table after she eats until she is satisfied, she leaves the table, returns back to work, but while she leaves, Boaz decides to do some things that will benefit or affect her life in the long run. He decides to work behind the scenes for her, even when she did not know it. And I labeled this as a work of providence because Boaz, being this kinsman redeemer, this prototype of Christ, is showing us how God at times works for us. That God does some providential things behind the scenes. And we don't even know what God is doing, why God is doing it, when God does it. We just know that God is doing it. It's not only a work of providence, but it is a work of provision. Because in verse 16 of chapter 2 last week, Boaz commanded his servants to drop handfuls on purpose, to leave some of the grain behind, drop them down on purpose so that Ruth will know that she has no need to look in no one else's field. It's a work of protection because he told his workers to not say a word to her, to not bother her. King James Version says to not scold her. But then it's also a work of plenty because when Ruth finished working that day, she left carrying an ephah, Ephah, an ephah, and that is 2/3 of a bushel of grain, more than enough for her and her mother-in-law to eat off of for a week. When she returns home, Naomi is impressed, and after discovering what has happened, she begins to work up a plan. In last week's lesson, we started to really see how intergenerationality is at work, where Naomi's wisdom is going to be used and paired with Ruth's vigor and her energy and her youthfulness as she begins to work out a plan that will benefit both of them. They're going to need each other. They have proven why they need each other. So let's look at how this intergenerational relationship begins to unfold, how the work of God begins to unfold in the life of Ruth, Naomi, and even Boaz when we look at chapter 3. All right, y'all ready? Let's dive in. The first 11 verses. The only reason why I'm doing this, I needed to break this down. Give me some time, because after this week, I only have 2 more weeks before we go into the Lenten season for Bible study. The first 11 verses of chapter 3, to me, embody what my generation would label as, it's some years old now with this term, but we would label chapter 3, verses 1 through 11 as a way for one to secure the bag. Secure the bag. You are now entering into the language of my generation. This is someone who is a millennial. You are now going with us through my language, my vernacular of my generation. And these 11 verses deals with one securing the bag. What does that mean, Pastor? It is. It deals with one doing whatever one has to do to obtain and access what one needs and wants to have in life. They are securing the bag. They are making sure that their coins are lining up. They are making sure that life for them will be the life they intend for it to be. And what you'll discover is that intergenerationality will be seen quite strongly here, because the two of them are going to be working together. They're going to have to work together to accomplish a goal. The two of them will need each other to carry out this plan. And here is the plan. When you look at verse 1 of chapter 3, this verse deals with the purpose for securing the bag. It deals with the purpose for securing the bag. Now, this is probably by now something that Naomi has thought long and hard about since the very first day Ruth returned home from working in Boaz's field. We're not given an exact date. We're not given an exact time. But it says, especially in the King James Version, or the New King James Version, says, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well for you? As Naomi saw it, working in Boaz's field, seeing that he is someone who is next of kin, Boaz needed to be reminded of his responsibility as this kinsman redeemer. She knows that she is too old to carry out this plan, but Ruth is the perfect candidate. The first thing that happens, what's going on in this text, right out of verse 1, that there is the purpose for a home. There is a purpose for a home. Naomi says to her daughter-in-law, daughter, I must seek a home for you. The word described in other versions would be the word security or rest. It would deal with providing this sanctuary, this home for Ruth. A marriage would provide Ruth with a new home. She would have a place to settle down and enjoy the blessings of her new relationship. She wouldn't have to worry about trying to figure out where is she going to lay her head, because whatever Boaz has, it would be hers. Naomi is already working up this scheme. You've been working in Boaz's field for this time. He has shown compassion. He has been generous to you because he is one who is next of kin. This is his responsibility to provide a home for you. He's not going to do it for me. I'm too old. But you are the rightful age of making sure that you're provided for. It's the purpose for finding a home, but it's also a purpose for help. For you, the rest of the verse says, I'm doing this for you, where you will be provided for. The rest or the security or the home promised Ruth a husband or a man who would meet her needs. Having this person, it would not only mean that they would love her, but they would have the responsibility of providing for her, taking care of her. It's a promise of help as she went down this path of life. Now, what I have to pause here and say is that Naomi is painting this picture that she's doing all of this for Ruth. But this is Naomi reliving life through Ruth also. Because she knows nobody will marry her. She even said that in chapter 1, I'm too old, I cannot have children, but I am living vicariously through my daughter-in-law. This is intergenerationality at its best. They are coming together to make this thing happen. Naomi is telling Ruth, I need to find this house, this home, this man, this husband, this marriage for you so that you can have a life. But Naomi knows, she already knows that Ruth is not going anywhere without her mother-in-law. So here it is. If Ruth finds a home, then you know Naomi is going to find a home. She's playing this part. She is working this thing together. This is wisdom at its best. So it's a purpose for a home. It's a purpose for help, but it's also a purpose for or of hope. If Ruth were to find such a marriage relationship, she would find relief from the past, her poverty, her pain. She would find the cure for her work, her worries, her wanders. And instead of life just being with Naomi, it would be so much brighter and so much better. Naomi is working this thing out. Now, we can also say that not only is this scheme for Naomi to have a better life as well, but it's also showing that if this plan works, that at times this is how God allows people who come in our lives to benefit us. Ruth had no idea about Boaz and his responsibility as this kinsman redeemer, but Naomi does. And Naomi knows that since he is next of kin, it is his responsibility to take care of those in his family who are without, who don't have. It is his responsibility to marry the widow and blah, blah, all of this. She knows that. And she's trying to make life better for the two of them. So there is a purpose for securing this bag. It's a purpose for a home, purpose for help, and purpose for hope. Let's keep reading. Because securing this bag wasn't just going to happen. There needed to be a plan. So verses 2 through 5 shows us the plan for securing the bag. These verses describe how it's going to be done. She tells Ruth, Naomi that is, where she will make this transaction happen. She's going to tell Ruth where Boaz will be at that time, at a certain time, and at a certain place. This plan, y'all, just did not come about. Naomi has been thinking about this plan ever since Ruth came back home with 2/3 of a bushel of grain and asked the question, where did you go? Who did the Lord touch to make this happen? She told him, Boaz. This is why Naomi implied through wisdom, don't you go to nobody else's field. You stay right here. This is where you're going to make a life for yourself. Now, I need to warn you right now that as we go through these verses, do not have your children listening to this, because what I'm about to share with you in these verses may be a little, I can do PG-13, but it may get a little rated R. I'm just giving you this warning. It may get, the way we're going to interpret what's going on, it may get a little raunchy. So be careful, whoever's watching, but I'm going to show it to you directly in Scripture. All right, verse 2. Let's look at this whole thing play out. She tells, Naomi that is, tells Ruth where she is going to meet Boaz. Boaz, in verse 2, she tells him, will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor, and this is where she's going to meet him. Look at verse 2. Now, there is our kinsman Boaz, whose girls you were close to. He will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor tonight. Now, let's get some definitions, some working concepts of what's really going on, because if you were like me, you knew nothing about winnowing barley. You knew nothing about the threshing floor. That's why I'm here. I didn't study for you. Winnowing barley. Winnowing barley was a process. If you're taking notes, you'll be able to write this down. It was a process that took place in the evening hours when a cool breeze would blow, particularly from, the sea. And it was a process that separated the mixed up pile of grain, stalk, and husk, so that the edible grain could be sifted to be eaten. One more time. It was the process that took place in the evening hours when a cool breeze would blow in, probably where they are from the Mediterranean Sea. And it was a process that separated the stuff that you could not eat from the grain, from the stuff that you could eat. To winnow grain, the farmer scooped up the pieces of the crop that he had just threshed and threw it all into the air, shaking it into the air. The wind blew the light pieces of stalk to the side, while the grain, which was both heavier and round, fell almost straight back down. So that's winnowing barley. It's almost described as what Psalm 1 talks about. Blessed is the individual who walks not into the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in that law doth he meditate both day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that shall bring forth fruit in his season, and whatever he does, it shall prosper. But the ungodly are not like so. They are like the chaff which the wind blows away. They are like the grain which the wind blows away. So that's how this process is being described. It's the process or the separation of the stuff that can be eaten from the grain and the stuff that cannot. This is done at the threshing floor. This is done at the threshing floor. This was the place where the winnowing took place, a place where the kernel was separated from the husk. And the workers would toss, or rather would then take a fan, and toss the grain in the air. Boaz is at the threshing floor winnowing barley. And he's there not necessarily because he had to be there, but he's there for two reasons. He's there, firstly, to prevent folks from stealing. He's there to prevent folks from stealing, and he's also there as a good landowner, as a good farmer. He's there to wait his turn to help the workers. He's not going to let them do this all by themselves, especially if there was a good season. You needed all hands on deck. Everyone needed to help. So he's there winnowing barley at the threshing floor for two reasons: to prevent folks from stealing, and that could be his own people who's working for him, or people from the outside, and he's there to wait his turn to work. She says, that's where, baby girl, you're going to find Boaz. But you're just not going to find him any kind of way. Verse 3 gives us Ruth's preparation. That Naomi is strongly interested in making sure this plan works. And she tells her, listen, you will not go any kind of way. What you'll see in verse 3 is that these instructions are also connected. There's an interconnection here to her conversion from being a Moabite to being a Jew. Remember in chapter 1, she makes this huge conversion, switching religions, switching gods, switching lifestyles. And this is how it's really coming about. It's not just the preparation of meeting Boaz, but it's also the preparation for her conversion. Look at what takes place. Verse 3, she says, so bathe, anoint yourself, dress up, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not disclose yourself to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Here's the process. The first thing she's to do, she's to get clean. She is to bathe herself. In washing, since this is connecting to her conversion, she is purifying herself from her earlier life. She's got to get clean. Then she is told to get consecrated. Anoint yourself. Put on, and when they anointed themselves, the oil was a fragrance. If this is dealing with her conversion, this would deal with her taking on Jewish commandments and traditions. Consecrate yourself. Since this is twofold, she's going to meet her future husband in a sense. This anointing herself would mean, listen, after you bathe, put on something that's going to smell good. He don't need to smell white diamond. Put on Chanel No. 5. Something that's going to arouse the senses. I'm telling you, we're getting ready to work with this. You know, you're gonna have to catch his attention when you walk by or when you walk in the room. Let him smell that you know what you're doing. Get clothed, or rather get clean, get consecrated. The third thing is get clothed. She would put on nice garments. Verse 3 tells her, dress up. Don't wear your work clothes. Put on something appealing and nice. You see how this is unfolding? This is just not, any ordinary meetup. This is not, she's going to work for this man every day looking any kind of way. No. Tonight, you're going to go through this full process because we've got to secure this bag tonight. We cannot wait any longer. We've got to secure this bag tonight. Now, if this is dealing with her conversion process, then this would involve her putting on her best garments as if she was going to observe the Sabbath. She didn't go any kind of way. So she had to get clean. She had to get consecrated, anoint herself. She had to get clothed. But then Naomi's instructions also told her to be covert. In other words, be secretive. Be secretive. Let me read this in King James Version. Therefore, wash yourself, anoint yourself, put on your best garments, and go down to the threshing floor. Watch this. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. She's not to go and let herself be seen prematurely. Naomi is wise. Because if she goes down there prematurely, he's going to try to figure out what is going on. The plan is not going to work. He must be, in the words of Naomi, full and drunk. I'm telling you, don't let your kids be watching this. Got to be full and intoxicated for this plan to work. Don't be seen prematurely. Now, this is really a scene. It might mess with some of you all's biblical knowledge and theology, but this is a scene, how I'm painting this and how it is being described to us. It is a scene of seduction. That's what this really is. It's a scene of seduction. Big Mama is showing little Mama how to get her man. That's what it is. That's securing the bag for both of them. That's really what this is. I know y'all thought this was just a beautiful love story. No. It had some raunchy things involved. The Bible, y'all, is really, it could really be a mini series on a reality TV show. Like, honest to God, the Bible is really a reality TV show. It unfolds so much. This is really this woman telling Ruth, her daughter-in-law, listen, I can't do this no more. He ain't gonna look at me. I'm too old. But you have first of all, you have already caught his eye. You've already caught his eye by how generous he's been to you, not just because he's this kinsman. You've caught his eye because he know you're a widow. He know you ain't got no man. He know you are not married. He knows what he's supposed to do. So let's go on, make this thing work and play this thing out the way it needs to be. But then look at verse 4. Because while she is to get clean, get consecrated, get clothed, be covert, she's also to be alert. Then it shall be, when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies down, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. In verse 4, this is where you take your kids out of the room, right? In verse 4, Naomi counsels Ruth, in a sense, I hate to even use that word, to wait until Boaz is alone and he has finished his public business before she approaches him with her request. This is not to be a public spectacle. It's to be private communion. Write that down. This is not to be a public spectacle. It's to be a private thing. She is not to make a scene in public and put him on the spot. She is to wait until she can meet with him in private. And as a pastor, I just got to pause here. I'm a preacher. I can make anything out of a sermon because if I can be honest, most of us in our life have probably messed up private moments by making them too public. Some stuff Naomi is suggesting, this has got to be private. What you're about to do, it needs to be private. She says, wait till he's full and drunk before you approach him. Notice where he's lying down. Wherever he lays down, that is when you go in, because he's going to be by himself, and you do some things. The first thing she tells her to do is uncover his feet and lie down. Now, how in the world can we say this? This is somewhat ambiguous language. Because this can be as narrow in its meaning as you want it to be, or it can be as broad as you want it to be. And I'm going to let you pause right there and think about where I'm going with this before I even go with it. This is what Bible study is all about. I enjoy studying the Bible, and I just don't use the King James Version, but I use the Jewish Study Bible, especially if I'm dealing with Old Testament. I deal with languages and Hebrew and all of that. So, with that being said, I'm not saying that this is what it is, but I'm going to give this out to you because in Hebraic study, this could literally mean doing exactly what it suggests, which really wouldn't make any sense. Uncover his feet. Wherever he lays, uncover his feet. Why? Maybe that would just, the wind would catch his feet and it would, get his attention and he would wake up. That really doesn't make any sense. When you really get into this, the term uncovering his feet may also, or the term feet can be, I may get in trouble with this, okay, I can back this up. It's a euphemism. It is a euphemism, E-U-P-H-E-M-I-S-M, E-U-P-H-E-M-I-S-M. It's a euphemism. It's a mild or indirect word or expression substituted for one considering to be maybe too harsh or too vulgar or too blunt, when referring to something unpleasant or embarrassing. That's what a euphemism is. And the term feet in its euphemistic way can refer to something that I cannot say online. And if you do your own study, it will unfold that to you, that it could refer to something that I am not, as your pastor, going to say online. Uncover his, think about the language that this woman is using. Come on, don't be immature with, don't do that. Be mature tonight and think about, she's told this woman how to seductively capture a man who is drunk. Uncover his feet, and then she tells her, lie down. This lying down also could be a euphemism, once again, for something that I cannot say online or in this space, even though I need to throw this out there, that the Bible has many sexual innuendos in it. The Bible is full of sex. I hate to tell you that. I know y'all don't think about that. The Bible is full of it. It's full of it, and it's not pretty either. It's full of it. That's just how it was written. Even though y'all talking about it was divinely inspired, that is absolutely what we believe. It is divinely inspired. However, in this book, there are some things in here that can be a little too graphic. It can be graphic. I explained to you in the first time that we looked at Ruth chapter 1, especially this dealing with levirate marriage, if you remember anything about that, I shared with you how that was what, in Genesis, a man by the name of Onan was supposed to do. He was supposed to marry his brother's sister and give her a baby. He was supposed to do that. But instead, when it came time for that to happen, he wasted the seed on the ground. And God killed him for it. And the reason why it was done, you could justify God killing him because that was what the law suggested that he should do. God had wrote the law, and in that day, God abided by that law. We are not under law anymore. We are under what? Grace. So thank God for grace. But yeah, the Bible is full of sexual innuendos. You can write me off tonight if you want to. It's okay. Hey, I pretty much can tell you right now, I know what I'm talking about at this point. It's full of it. And so this is really what she is told to do. It's seduction. And if you want to be, direct with biblical and the law, with the Bible and law, this was really customary by law. It was common for, if we take this out of the whole sexual piece, it was common for a servant to lie at the feet of their master and even share in their part of covering. It was by law. So what happens by doing this, Ruth would be informing Boaz that he could take on the responsibility that is due to him, and that is to be the kinsman redeemer. That he would marry her and take on that responsibility. This ain't got nothing to do fully with love in this predicament. This is also a business practice. This is really business. This was Naomi once again showing Ruth how to secure the bag. This ain't had nothing to do with romance. No, this had nothing to do with romance. This had everything to do with finance. And for those of you who are planning to get married, you better have more than love on your side. Because where there is no finance, there is no romance. And that is it. When you look at divorce, the number one cause of divorce right now is really the fact of finances. It has something to do with money. This is a business thing. This is a business. Naomi, whether we want to believe it or not, she might be this grieving widow that we want to characterize herself to be. She's also a businesswoman. She is telling her daughter-in-law how to secure this bag. She's doing it. Now, if you're on social media like I am, they've got this TikTok thing about they had a young lady, she was dressed up in Big Mama's house gown. And it's a video, I cannot show that to you tonight, but the video describes how back in the day, Big Mama made sure, this is how Big Mama made sure her bills were paid. She had a house over, she had a roof over her head. And this is what Naomi is trying to tell Ruth what to do. Let's keep reading, because y'all done wrote me off. All right, it's okay. I'm still here. Y'all done wrote me off. Let's keep reading. Let's go back to the Bible. So watch this. Watch what happened. Verse 6. She went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law instructed her. Boaz ate and drank, and in a cheerful mood went down to lie beside the grain pile. Then she went over stealthily and uncovered his feet and lay down. In the middle of the night, the man gave a start and pulled back, and there was a woman lying at his feet. She's at his feet, and when he realizes something is going on, he's scared to death. Look at what he asked. Verse 9, he asked her, "Who are you?" He asked. He's drunk. He's intoxicated. She replied, "I am your handmaid, Ruth. Spread your robe over your handmaid, for you are a redeeming kinsman." Now, verses 9 through 11, I'm done for tonight, deal with Ruth. It deals with the promise, rather, of securing the bag. So we dealt with the purpose. We got the plan. Now look at the promise of securing the bag. Because instead, notice, Naomi's instruction was, you lay down at his feet and let him tell you what you should do. Instead of her listening to Naomi, Ruth makes the first move. This flips gender roles right here. It flips gender roles. You know, we were taught men should make the first approach, and Ruth makes the first move. She tells him, put your robe over me. And in Hebrew, verse 9, this would be seen as the word is kanaf, K-A-N-A-F, K-A-N-A-F, or wings. It translates to covering or hiding, kanaf, K-A-N-A-F. If I'm saying it right, I took a year or two of Hebrew, and child, I hated it, every bit of it, but I still kind of remember some of it a little bit. Kanaf, it deals with wings or covering. Put your robe over me. She is giving Boaz instructions on what to do. And she says, because you're doing this because I know who you are, and you are my kinsman redeemer. Her words also, by telling him, put your robe over me, propose marriage. Referring to Boaz as a kinsman redeemer is linking the concept, once again, of levirate marriage, Levirate, levirate marriage, and land redemption. This marriage is going to be based upon business practices. Naomi is using Ruth to get what is hers. That's really what it is. Now it unfolds to, this being translated to where Jesus comes from, the lineage, Jesus can be traced back to Boaz and Ruth. Of course, that's how the story really unfolds. When you do a deeper insight of this got everything to do with levirate marriage and land redemption. And this is how the promise unfolds. The first thing he does, he receives her. He receives her. Look at verse 10. He exclaimed, be blessed of the Lord, daughter. Your latest deed of loyalty is greater than the first, in that you have not turned to younger men, whether rich or poor. Y'all, I told y'all, this is good to me. So he receives her. He pronounces this blessing of the Lord over her and declaring her loyal deed. I don't know what she did at laying at his feet, and I don't know all that, but hey, it worked because he receives her. But then, if y'all could hear Clarence in the back, that was funny to me. You can't even hear him. But then he reassures her. So he receives her, reassures her. Let's read verse 11. And now, daughter, have no fear. I will do in your behalf whatever you ask. For all of the elders of my town know what a fine woman you are. Y'all thought I was crazy. I'm trying to put this out. But then he rejoices over her. But while it is true, I am a kinsman redeemer. Read verse 12. There is another redeemer closer than I. So that's why I'm ending. So he receives her, reassures her, rejoices over her. He promises that this, whatever plan her and Naomi got worked up, he's going to make sure it happens. He's going to make sure it is done. Whatever needs to happen, it's going to happen. But there's a problem. And we'll look at that problem on next Wednesday. All right, I'm done. I got to go. I got to go because y'all are probably sitting there looking at me like, what in the world have we gone through? You have just now concluded another night of Word Up Wednesday. This is what Bible study is for. It's taking us through the Bible. Listen, I'm gone. I'm praying for you always. Don't forget, we've got some exciting things taking place here in the life of our church. On the 13th of February, our marriage ministry is meeting via Zoom. On the 25th of February, our women's ministry is coming together for their first meetup, their first mix and mingle. It's going to be in the Cobb Center on the 25th. Don't forget that on this coming Sunday, we are repping Black culture. We're wearing HBCU attire. We are wearing pro-Black stuff, Greek attire. I'm actually rocking tonight a brand from my line brother. He owns a company entitled or called Proud Black Brand. And so I have on a crew neck. He did not pay me for this advertisement, but I'm sure if he is watching, I will have more apparel from Proud Black Brand. So you can check that out. I always try my best, if especially during this month, to lift up Black business owners. We have several Black business owners in our congregation. We have them in our congregation, and hopefully maybe by the end of this month, they can tell you about their business, what they do, so that we can broadcast and help one another. All right, I'm gone. I love you. Always praying for you. Until we meet again. Peace.